Hi everyone! Today's lesson is about Berlo's SMCR model communication. To start off, I am Trisha K. Bokol and I'm going to discuss to you the history of Berlo's communication model and what is its meaning. But before that, let me introduce to you my group mates. To complete the team, together with me are Shahana, Camille, Althea, Christina, Joshua, Jerry, and Chris. So what is communication? Communication is a process of sharing meaning, or communication is a process of sending and receiving messages through verbal or non-verbal means. In Berlo's model communication, it suggests that the speaker is the one who drives the entire communication. So why did Berlo came up with the SMCR model? History. Berlo's communication model was proposed in 1960 by David Berlo. So in the year 1960, David Kenneth Berlo, an American communication theorist, created Berlo's communication model. He suggests Berlo's sender, message, channel, receiver or SMCR model of communication in the year 1949. David Kenneth Berlo wrote the book The Process of Communication. In his book entitled The Process of Communication or El Proceso de la Comunicación, it mainly focused on the objective and purpose of communication which he developed from Claude Shannon and Warren Weaver's mathematical model. His model includes verbal and non-verbal communication. This model also focuses on encoding and decoding. Berlo's communication model also focuses on encoding and decoding, which happens before the sender sends the message to the receiver and the receiver receives the message from the sender. The process of turning thought or feelings into communication is what we call encoding, and decoding means turning our communication into thoughts or feelings.
David Berlo is an American communication theorist born in March 1929, United States of America. Died on February 1996 and graduated at University of Illinois. In 1995, at the age of 29, received his doctorate degree in the study of communication from the University of Illinois. Berlo was a student of Wilbur Scrum, who sat on the doctoral committee, and Scrum, whose theories of communication are well known, and Berlo functioned in the role of educator, author, and communication department chair at MSU for 14 years, from the department's inception in 1957 through 1971. He became county chairperson of the Republican Party and was passed over for the position of Dean of the College of Communication Arts. In 1971, he became president of Illinois State University but resigned in 1973. The work focused on the purpose and objectives of communication and addressed Berlo's model of communication, which he developed from the Claude-Shannon and Warren Weaver's mathematical model. In 1960, he wrote a book entitled El Proceso de la Comunicación, or The Process of Communication. And in his book, he stressed the importance of the perception of the source in the eye of the receiver and also the channels by which the message is delivered. And in this book, he quoted Aristotle saying that the prime goal of communication was persuasion and attempt to sway other men to the speaker's point of view. And his model includes verbal and nonverbal communication. It also considers the emotional aspects of the message.
So, who is David Berlo? David Berlo is the only one proponent of Berlo's model of communication. David Berlo in 1960 he postulated Berlo's sender, message, channel, receiver or SMCR model of communication from Shannon Weaver's model of communication in 1949. Also, he described factors affecting the individual components in the communication, making the communication more efficient. And lastly, he composed mainly four components to describe the communication process. They are the sender, message, channel, and receiver.
David Berlo's model of communication is composed of four components. the sender, message, channel, and receiver. Now, to better understand the communication process, we have to characterize each of its components. So let me discuss about the first component, which is the sender. The sender is the source of the message relayed to the receiver. The role of the sender is guided by a process called encoding, which is converting information from one system of communication to another. So what are the factors affecting this component? There are 5 factors. First is the sender's communication skills, which include reading, listening, speaking, and etc. Second is attitude. The sender's attitude determines the meaning and even the decoding of the message. That being said, the sender's established relationship with the audience, receiver, and subject is crucial in communication. Next one is knowledge. An effective communicator is someone who is well-versed or knowledgeable with the subject of the message. An information source's lack of familiarity might lead to misinformation. Fourth factor is social systems. Conformity to a set of individual standards in social systems, such as values, beliefs, religion, and rules, may inflict influence to the sender's manner of communication. Furthermore, a sender also considers the context, the location, and the situation for appropriation thereof. Lastly is the culture. This factor affects both the sender and the receiver of the information. In a broad spectrum of cultural variation, the source uses his or her own cultural approach in sending a message. However, because of a receiver's distinct cultural background, the message could be perceived differently.
Since Althea already explained the source or center part of the SMCR model of communication, let us jump into the message and channel part of it. So, you'll have all the freedom to pause the video to read, but I'll just explain it in much simpler terms. Message. It is an individual's thoughts put into words. This process is also called as encoding. Included in the message part of the SMCR model communication are the content, elements, treatment, structure, and code. So as you can see in the PowerPoint, content is the message from beginning to end. For example, whatever the class teacher teaches in the class from beginning to end, it is the content of the message. Next are the elements. Elements are non-verbal or verbal aspects such as gestures and signs. It also includes various things like language, body language, etc. They constitute all the elements of a particular message. Any content is accompanied by some elements. Third is the treatment. Treatment refers to the way in which the message is sent, or it refers to the packing of the message and the way in which the message is conveyed or the way in which it is passed on or delivered. Next is the structure. As the word suggests, the structure of the message refers to the way in which it is structured, or in simpler terms, in which how is it arranged. And the last one is code. The code of the message refers to the means through which it is sent and in what form. It could be, for example, language, body language, gestures, music, or etc. Even culture is a code. Through this, people give and receive messages and communication takes place. Channel, on the other hand, is the route or the medium by which the message travels and how the information flows from the sender to the receiver. For example, cell phones, laptops, or computers. If in your case, you're using your phone as a medium to receive message through text or chat, you're using your visual sense in order to read what the sender is trying to imply. All these 5 senses that you can see in the PowerPoint are the channels which helps us to communicate easier with each other.
Receiver, the fourth and the last component of Berlo's model communication. The receiver needs to think all the contents and the elements of the source so as to communicate and respond to sender effectively. Berlo's model believes that for effective communication to take place, the source and the receiver need to be on the same level. Only then, communication will happen or take place properly. Hence, the source and the receiver should be similar. For example, if the communication skill of the source is good, then the receiver should have equally good listening skills. It cannot be said that the receiver does not receive the whole message because even though he may receive it, but may not be able to interpret its meaning. For effective communication, the source and the receiver need to be on the same level. You have to remember, self-image differs from person to person. For communication, the person should consider the receiver speak accordingly and give them what they need.
For example, toothpaste advertisement, Colgate. This advertisement is an example of Berlo's model of communication because it shows the SMCR elements. In this particular ads, the sender is a Colgate company. The message is their promotion on why should we buy or choose Colgate. The channel is TV ads and the receiver is the viewers.
So, this is the example or the applicable situation of Berlo's communication model. You have the DepEd. The DepEd declares the opening of classes on October 2020. We have the SMCR, the source, message, channel, and receiver. The source. The source is transfer information to the receiver after putting his thoughts into word. We have the example of DepEd. The DepEd is the implementator or the author of the topic. The DepEd announced that opening of school year is on October 2020. So we have the message. The message is to bring topic or the content that made by source. So we have the message. The message is the Department of Education or DepEd announced the decision of the President to defer the school opening for school year 2020 to 2021 from August 24, 2020 to October 5, 2020 as recommended by the Secretary of Education in light of the implications on the imposition of Modified Enhanced Community Quarantine or MACQ in Metro Manila in provinces. We have the channel. The channel is the medium of how the information flows from the sender to receiver, and it includes the 5 senses are the channels to help communicate each others. The DepEd use television, social media, and other platforms to spread the news. And lastly, we have the receiver. The receiver are the people or the citizens of the Philippines. The people reacts why only the public schools. The private schools also are not ready on the opening of classes. Many citizens react on the news.